This amazing game and experiment is brought to you by our sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is where you learn cool stuff by doing cool stuff. They have thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI, and you learn about the subjects through these super cool little mini games that teach you everything through first principles. Machine learning and AI is everywhere. Sometimes it feels a bit like magic for me, and I must admit I can even get a little scared by it. Therefore, I'm taking lessons on machine learning on Brilliant to better understand how it all works. You can as well, and to try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, just visit brilliant.org/ASMRchess, or you can scan the QR code here on screen or use the link in the description. The link also gives you a 20% discount on an annual premium subscription. Hello and welcome to another piece of supreme chess relaxation with me, your host, a chessama. Chess. And today I invite you to join a little experiment, a little game you can play with me. So what is that? What am I talking about? This is a little experiment that should be very tingling for you and should also help to demonstrate something that is close to my heart. But first, I will tell you just a little bit about the game that we are going to look at today. We travel back in time, all the way back in time, to 1863, to Worcester in England, where Joseph Blackburne, the British master, was playing a simultaneous exhibition, playing 10 games of chess at the same time while wearing a blindfold, not being able to see any of the boards. So he would call out the moves, pawn to e4, and somebody would call out the response, board 3, pawn to e5, like so, and he would keep everything in his head. And as is always the case with Joseph Blackburne, the game is absolutely amazing and contains a spectacular checkmate that is very satisfying and that we will be very happy to see when we reach it. So that is the background. What is the little experiment I want you to join, and why is it close to my heart? Well, today we have a lot of awesome new chess fans coming in to the chess community and being very happy to discover chess, and we have people like me who are just so in love with all these awesome new people coming and enjoying the beautiful game of chess. We do also have a bit of hero worship going on, which is only fair when we have a almost literal chess god walking amongst us, such as Magnus Carlsen. And here is my mission today. My mission is to demonstrate to doubters of the old school that in fact people could play chess brilliantly even before Magnus Carlsen, even before Kasparov, before the engines, before opening theory was super developed and the technique was perfected, even almost 200 years ago in 1863. And how I'm going to try to do that is with this little experiment. What if you put yourself in Blackburne's shoes or in his blindfold? What if you closed your eyes like so? Which is also beneficial for the ASMR and relaxing component of the video. And what if you tried to keep track of the game as I go over the moves? I will call out every move, pawn to e4, pawn to e5. That's how the game began. That's how the game began. And you can just relax, try to keep the board in your head at any time. You can open your eyes or look at the board to remind yourself of where the pieces are, a luxury that of course Blackburne did not have. And of course, if you just want to watch the video as per usual, you are of course also free to do that. If you join me in this little experiment, I guess you will agree after the video is done that it's pretty impressive what Blackburne did. 10 boards, all in his head, and then playing a game like the one we are going to look at. So now I reset the board. We are now in the starting position. We are in Blackburne's shoes. He has the white pieces, and he calls out on board 1 against an anonymous opponent from the chess club he was visiting. He calls out the move, pawn to e4. His opponent calls out the move, the response, pawn to e5. And here we kick off with the excitement already. Blackburne plays pawn to d4, the center gambit, asking white if white really wants to capture this pawn right away. After pawn to d4, we see black oblige and capture the pawn. Pawn on e5 takes pawn on d4. We do not see queen takes pawn. Instead, we see the Danish gambit with pawn to c3, challenging the pawn on d4 and threatening to just capture it and re-establish the center pawn duo. And the Danish gambit here is accepted in this blindfold exhibition, and the player with the black pieces plays pawn on d4, takes pawn on c3. Theory here in the Danish gambit dictates that we do not immediately recapture the pawn with the knight, but instead plays out the bishop coming to c4, actually allowing black, if black would like to, capture on b2, which black does not want to do in this particular position. Instead, black more humbly just plays pawn to d6, saying that they have already bagged 2 pawns. That should be enough. Will it be enough? Blackburne calls out the move, knight takes c3. And knight c3 is whispery, and I would like to just have a little plug for my Patreon right here, because I have made another version of this video that is entirely whispered, where I go over the entire game, but I whisper the whole way through. So if you would like to see and hear that version of the video, well, that is accessible to my patrons on patreon.com/ASMRchess. Thank you for your patience. All right, after knight to c3, we see knight coming to c6. And this knight is coming to c6 to control the e5 square. This is something that is very important in the Danish gambit, and something that black has some understanding of, but not a complete understanding, as we will soon see, in fact. So now Blackburne plays knight to f3, also looking at e5. And in many of these variations, it's about playing the pawn forward to e5. And if you want to learn more about it, there is a linked video in the description I have made about the Danish Gambit, where I go over a lot of the most common traps you can play with the Danish Gambit, and also the particular pattern, not exactly the same position, but the particular pattern being exploited by Blackburne in this video. In this position, we want to see something like knight to f6 or something like that, but that is not played. In this position, white actually has a great many threats, and black is trying to meet them by stopping the pawn coming to e5 by playing his knight to e5 himself. And this is, I guess you could say, this is a game-losing blunder. The idea is good. It attacks the bishop and it protects the vulnerable f7 square. But there is a particular pattern in the Danish Gambit that Blackburne exploits immediately. And you could say, well, if the game is already over, so to speak, why are we making this video? Well, I'm making this video because in order to finish the game off as quickly as possible, Blackburne plays an absolutely astonishing whirlwind attack, ending up in like one of those Blackburne checkmates. Like, you will have to see it either with your own eyes or with your mind's eye if you are really trying to keep the game all in your head. What is the pattern that can be exploited after this move, after the knight coming to e5? Something about a vulnerability of the queen and the weakness of the f7 square. And it goes like this. White plays knight takes knight on e5. The knight is protected by the pawn, so pawn on d6 takes knight on e5. But now comes the punishment. Bishop takes on f7 with check. So after white plays this move, bishop f7 check, we see that black has two legal moves. He can either capture the bishop or he can move one square forward. If he captures the bishop, his king will no longer protect the queen, and queen takes queen simply wins the queen for a bishop and an easily winning position for white. Fortunately, we did not see that, and instead we get to witness this just amazing gem of a game that Blackburne has given us. So we see king to e7 instead. And white has a huge advantage, but how actually to convert this into a full point to a win? After king to e7, it's time to hunt the majesty a little bit. And we throw a check. Can you find the check? Bishop g5 check. And the king still cannot capture the bishop because the queen would still be hanging, and therefore we see knight blocking the check with knight to f6, like so. This knight is pinned to the king by the bishop, meaning that Blackburne can play queen to h4 without it being captured by the knight because of the pin. So Blackburne plays queen to h4, protecting the bishop, getting the dangerous queen dangerously close to the black king. Now, we have a lot of threats going on as white. For instance, we might want to play our knight to a square like d5 with check and an attack on the knight here on f6. So in order to control this very important d5 square, we see black play the very slow move, pawn to c6, defending here on d5. Blackburne is just all about piece activity. He wants all of his pieces to participate, which they will always also do, all the remaining pieces, I should say, in the very beautiful checkmate coming up. So he plays first rook to d1 with an attack on the queen and cutting off all of these squares, making it very hard for the king to move anywhere at all. The queen, after rook to d1, can now come out to a5 because of this little c6 move. From here it pins the knight. But Blackburne is not afraid at all. He doesn't even castle just yet. After queen to a5, he plays f4, threatening the pawn on e5, just saying, I want to finish this game quickly. I don't think you can come in with an attack at all, and I will come in and checkmate you with this move. In response to this, we can see that it's very hard to find any sort of move for black at all. He tries queen to c5, maybe some ideas of coming in with a check, but it doesn't do much, and in fact the queen will have to move again immediately after pawn on f4 takes pawn on e5, threatening the pinned knight. The queen will have to capture that, and that is what we see. Queen takes pawn on e5. And now white castles to the king's side with this rook bearing down. And we can just, on the f-file, I should say, bearing down on the f-file, we can just take like a little mental picture of this position. If you end up out of the opening in this position as black, something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. What is black's position? How can we say development is going? We could say that the queen is developed. We have one piece developed. We could argue that maybe the knight was developed, but I'm not going to say this is a full piece developed because it is pinned and it is under so much attack. So I would say maybe this is half a developed piece. So we have 1.5 developed piece and an exposed king for black, whereas every single white piece is just exercising all of their power in an extremely effective and menacing way. But you have to play precisely. If you're playing against a club player, you shouldn't underestimate a club player. If you give them a chance, they will find it, and that would be very embarrassing for the Grandmaster Blackburne here to play in this with such flourish and such attacking spirit, only to blunder. And you know he has to keep 10 chessboards in his head. So yeah. So after this move, let's contemplate what black can try to do. And there is this bishop here on f7. Maybe we could come in and capture that if we are a little bit lucky and we can get the queen to go somewhere else. So how about this? How about playing pawn to h6? That is what black does, playing pawn to h6. Not so much threatening pawn takes bishop, but threatening queen takes bishop. The pawn is pinned a little bit to the rook, so maybe pawn takes bishop's not that dangerous, but queen takes bishop is very dangerous. Is it dangerous enough that Blackburne wants to move the bishop? No, not that bishop, but a different bishop. And I would like to commend anybody who are trying to keep track of this in their head with closed eyes. You guys and you girls and you people, whoever you are amazing. Even if you have to look at the screen every one move, it's completely okay. Can you find a move here? What would be a move? Would you find bishop to e8 with the threat of checkmate? So if queen or pawn takes bishop, queen coming to f7 is checkmate. Notice that the rook on d1 is taking away all these escape squares for the king. But it looks like there is a pretty decent defensive resource available to black. Bishop coming to e6, defending the f7 square, also opening it up an attack from the rook to the bishop. And are you ready for the magic? Because now we get to see the brilliance of Joseph Blackburne. There is two moves you can play that are both winning. You could play rook coming to d7 with check, and that's actually checkmate in 20 moves. But what is better than checkmate in 20 moves? That is checkmate in 18 moves, and that is what Blackburne plays, because he likes the idea of putting the rook on d7 with a check, but he doesn't like the fact that a little bit down the line, this square, when the king has moved, will be attacked by this knight. So how to deal with that? How about just rook takes knight on f6? See, that is a chess move. Chess move and a half. And in fact, it is now checkmate in 17 moves. If and only if black plays queen takes rook, sacrificing the queen immediately to the bishop. That's the best. That's the best defense. That's of course also hopeless, being down so much in material. So why not pawn takes f6, also attacking the bishop? Looks much better, but that is checkmate in 8 moves. So the queen really wants to come in to f7 with a check. That is currently being defended by the bishop. So let's play rook to d7 with a check, which forces bishop takes d7. That is the only move. And now with the bishop on d7, it is no longer covering f7. So let's go to f7 with our queen. Queen f7, check. And this is already a super cool game. A lot of attacking spirit, pieces flying all around the board. But the finish is what it's really about. The game could finish immediately if we saw king coming to d8, then simply queen takes bishop would be checkmate. So black is not playing that. Instead we see king to d6. We still play queen takes d7 with a check, forcing king to c5. And this is a beautiful position. I want you to notice something about this bishop here. This bishop is going to participate in the upcoming checkmate in a super cool way that is very original, and it's very Blackburne-ish. So it's not going to move for the rest of the game, but it will play a super important role in the checkmate. We have to throw more checks. Can you find a good check to throw? How about bishop to e3? Check. So the king could come to c4 or b4. It's going to be a little bit of the same. Checkmate is coming no matter what you do. In the game we saw king to b4. And against this, Blackburne played queen to takes b7 with check. And here, king to a5 was the move. And as if it was not enough to play 10 boards simultaneously blindfolded, Blackburne decides to, in this position with everything else going on, to announce checkmate in 3. So he goes, let's say this is board 1, checkmate in 3. That's a forced checkmate in 3. All of these attacking moves, by the way, are all correct. It's the absolute perfect way to play. After like all the book sacrifice, everything's just perfect. But yeah, he announces mate in 3. So it's a little mate in 3 puzzle. Maybe you can find it. It's not something with queen here. This is protected like the b5 square is protected by the queen and the pawn. No, the checkmate in 3 here. And by the way, if you like checkmate in 3 puzzles or other puzzles, I'd like to say that on my Patreon we have weekly puzzles. So I will post a puzzle, like a checkmate in 3 puzzle or something cool like that, every week. How about this game? Could you solve this checkmate in 3 puzzle? Did you find pawn to b4 check? This is a very forcing move. There is only one reply. The king cannot take the pawn. It's protected by the queen. The knight takes away this square, and the queen takes away this square and this square. But bishop takes pawn is absolutely the only move. Okay, fine, cool. Now it's checkmate in 2 moves. And there is one move here. There is one move. If you fail to find this move, the evaluation goes from white being completely crushing to the position being closer to a draw. So one move is completely crushing, checkmate in 2. The next best move is a draw. So very crucial to find the correct idea. And it's very, very, very cool. I just love Blackburne for this. Like, he does this, like, these just crazy checkmates that we just never see anywhere else. And this check is, did you find it? Like, if you did, I'm so amazed. Bishop b6 check, which is a very forcing move, because there is only one move. The king cannot capture the bishop. The king cannot go anywhere. So the only move is pawn takes bishop. Okay. And After pawn takes bishop on b6, Blackburne played queen takes rook on a8, and that is checkmate. Because the knight takes away this square and this square, the pawns take away these square, the pawn take away this square, the bishop takes away this square, and the bishop is crucially blocking the rook from capturing the queen. So the bishop is participating in this checkmate, not because it's covering any squares, not because it's checking the king or cutting off an escape, but by virtue of cutting off the rook from the queen. Notice that if black had any move, at any time rook takes bishop protected by the queen, black is crushing. Of course, there was no time for such a move. So I've done this with another Blackburne video, which was after the game. I just went over it one more time, and I'm going to do that again. And I mean, if you are done with this video, you can click away. That's not a problem. This one is also really for my sake, because I just get tremendous enjoyment out of looking at these gems. And don't get me wrong, I love Alireza, Magnus Carlsen, Caruana. I love the modern day crop of super grandmasters as much as the next person, but those games are so technical and so evenly matched that it is very hard for a mere mortal such as myself to really truly understand the beauty of what is going on, where something like this is much more pure, it's much more expressive. It's expressing the soul of chess in a way that is much easier for a mortal like myself to understand. e4, e5, d4, center gambit, e takes d4, c3, Danish gambit, pawn takes c3, bishop c4, Danish gambit accepted, d6, knight takes c3, knight c6, knight f3, and the game losing blunder, knight coming to e5. So the game is losing from here, but the way Blackburne demonstrated the win for white is just absolutely amazing. Knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and in this classical position we have this classic type of position, we have the classic pattern with bishop takes f7 check. The king cannot capture the bishop because the queen would capture the queen, and that would be game over. Therefore, king to e7, bishop coming out to g5 with a check, knight blocking the check, knight to f6, queen coming to h4, protecting the bishop, opening up the file for the rook, and getting closer to the king. Pawn to c6, trying to control d5, rook to d1, queen coming out to a4, f4, queen c5, a move that does nothing at all, pawn takes pawn on e5, queen takes pawn on e5, and white castles the king. And this is like a picture-perfect example of how you want development to go in your games. Complete domination of black, who was just crumbled and has no development, and an unsafe king, and all of your pieces playing to the maximum effect. Pawn to h6, threatening the bishop. The threat is ignored. Instead we see bishop coming to e8 with a checkmate threat. Bishop coming to e6, protecting f7 against the checkmate threat. And now the killer blow, rook takes f6, pawn takes rook on f6, the follow-up of the second rook sacrifice, rook to d7 check, bishop takes d7, now f7 is available to the queen, queen to f7 check, king to d6, queen takes bishop on d7 check, king c5, bishop sneakily coming back to e3 check, king coming to b4, bishop takes b7 check, king a5, Blackburne announces checkmate in 3, and it goes like this, pawn to b4, that is check, bishop takes, pawn, bishop coming to b6. This is so cool, this move. Every time I see it, it's so cool. This forces, getting back to my ASMR voice, even though it's hard to contain my excitement of just how amazing this checkmate is. This forces pawn on a takes b6, and the final move, queen takes rook on a8, and that is checkmate. So that is the video. Thank you very much for watching. Remember that you can watch a whispered version of this video if you are a patron at patreon.com/ASMRchess. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.